You are now entering the Horror Sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. And this week we're joined by director and composer Brent McCorkle. Brent, welcome to the show and thanks for taking some time with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I think your probably most recognizable work so far has been this year's film, Jesus Revolution. I'm going to tap. Yes, I did say Jesus Revolution on this show. Which is obviously a Christian-based film that's gotten a lot of traction this year. I've heard a lot of good things about it. So before we dive into the movie that you picked, which is not The Passion of the Christ or Jesus Revolution, take a second just to tell everybody how you got into filmmaking and composing and all that.
Yeah, I'll do this very short version of it. I was like a typical adrift artist. It's really interesting. People have, obviously different opinions about being raised religious or raised in the church. And as people are leaving the church in droves, it's pretty interesting because, say what you want about the religion. It is kind of this interesting community that I think a lot of people end up missing or craving when they leave the church. They're like looking for their spot to belong. And so I feel lucky in some ways being raised in a very religious environment that I was nurtured as an artist. And I didn't really honestly realize how artistic I was. Because if you're a kid, they're going to throw you up on stage or have you play the xylophone or act in a play or sing on stage. For me, it was just very natural to me. So I ended up being a pretty decent piano player and pretty decent singer in that environment. And didn't really think much of it. Well, when I kind of got out from my parents' household and kind of lost my way, as we all do, and went on my own searches, I was actually an artist. I didn't realize it. So I switched majors 5 times, thought about going into the military, thought about being a cop. I was going to be an anesthesiologist. I was pre-med. So I always try to encourage people in their 20s, man, your 20s are kind of to figure it out. So at 29, it clicked for me that I really wanted to try to have a film career. So I went to SMU in Dallas and studied a bunch of film classes and dropped out. So I'm still a college dropout, but from there, man, I was already married, had a mortgage, had kids, and it was rough, man. But I kind of launched into this starving artist quest to become the best filmmaker I could. And it was a little bit tough in Dallas, because there was nobody that wanted to make feature films like I did. So you look to the left and the right for your allies, and there really are none. So it was a pretty slow journey, pretty solitary journey. But I started making short films, man, and I would run out in the woods with my friends, and that's the most fun I ever had in my career. You hear a lot of people talk about that, but the most fun, the nostalgia that I'm trying to get back to, that feeling that I'm always going to try to get back to now in my pro career, is that feeling of running out, not knowing what you're doing into the woods with a borrowed camera that didn't have insurance on it. And like, you're literally like, you're probably skipping bills just so you can feed your crew. And, it was that starving artist, blue collar thing that I just love so much. So 50 shorts later, I started hitting and tracking in different film festivals and stuff. I actually made some horrors. I actually love the horror genre. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. But in the midst of all that, someone saw a fantasy film that I did, a purgatory movie. And for some reason, they thought I'd be good at this little drama they wanted to do. That was, like kind of it had God in it, it's kind of a faith adjacent movie. And I had nothing going on. So they offered me this $2 million movie in 2012. And I was like, I'll take it, And so what that's done, it's been pretty interesting. But you do hear a lot of stories like this. But once you kind of go into the system, oftentimes you become relegated to you're known for a certain thing, and fairly or not, that's kind of what you end up known for. So yeah, a lot of the work that I've done has been in like the faith adjacent aspirational genre of film, and I really like it, man. I really do want, like everything I do, even the horror stuff I did, I really tried to bring some sort of spiritual thematic to it, but I generally try to think more in universal terms of how it hits. And so if you do decide to watch some of my movies, you'll definitely see some universal truths, like what is suffering, and where does compassion come from? What is empathy? What does a place to belong look like? So I try to bring like kind of my wider more generous viewpoints, I think, into these opportunities that I'm afforded in the faith space, which is very interesting because faith is in very much in keeping with what you would expect from a Hollywood genre. It has its own little things that you want to, little things you want to tick off, similar to a good horror film. And so, yeah, so we did Jesus Revolution. The last few pictures I worked on have been through Lionsgate, and yeah, man, I'm good. I do hope to get back to, what I'd always dreamed about doing was a high concept Hollywood career, and I really aspire to, like a Spielberg or even an M. Night Shyamalan, in ways where you see what they were trying to do. So M. Night Shyamalan did a ghost story, then he did a superhero movie, then he did a period piece, then he did a fantasy movie, then he did like an action, he moved through all the verticals of Hollywood high concept. And I would just really love to get back to that at some point. I love high concept. I try to bring more high concept into even dramas, so and horror is like the ultimate in high concept, I think, and so yeah, I love this genre, and I've worked in it before, and I would love to get back to it at some point.
Awesome. So are you an elevated horror guy, like A24 and like films that are smart that make you think?
I've never seen a bad A24 film. I've seen a couple of them that I personally didn't care for, but all of them have been like top shelf, just they curate things in a way that literally blows my mind. I love A24, and I think they're amazing. And I mean, I can only sing their praises. I think they were the first mini major to sign on to both of the strikes criteria to move forward. So A24 never missed a beat in these strikes because they're like, yeah, hey, whatever you guys need, we're in this together. I really applaud their culture, and I just applaud the actual stories that they approve to be made. So yeah, man, I mean, we could go on down the line.
Another conversation for another episode.
Yeah.
I've not seen an A24 movie that was bad either. I've seen some that were, I'm like, would I watch it again? Maybe a couple of years, but just good stuff. So your pick was not an A24 film. Your pick, I think, was a Netflix exclusive, which was 2017's The Ritual, directed by David Bruckner. If you're unfamiliar, there are going to be spoilers in this episode, as usual. Again, like I said, you can catch it on Netflix. I won't spoil you on how we feel about it, but one of us at least says go watch it. He may or may not be speaking now. But the synopsis is reuniting after a tragic death of their friend. 4 college pals set out to hike through the Scandinavian wilderness. What could go wrong there? But a wrong turn leads them into a mysterious forest of Norse legend where an ancient evil exists and stalks them at every turn.
And boy, does it ever stalk them at every turn. Man, I didn't know what to expect with this movie. I know, I've known Brent somewhat for a number of years, enough to know that he has good taste in film. We have some similar tastes when it comes to genre and stuff. So I trusted that I was in good hands with the recommendation from Brent. But you never know what you're going to get with these Netflix exclusives. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're just okay, and sometimes not so much. But this one, I have to say, over-delivered on my expectations. It is in the vein, I would say, of folk horror. Very much, it's kind of almost got a fairy tale kind of take bent to it, I would say, because you got the core, you start with a trauma, right? A trauma that affects this core group of guys, and it's very much a new take on kind of the bro movie, the bonding, the almost like the bro com, but it's not comedy, but it has a very similar setup. And then you get that traumatic thing where they lose one of their own, and then there's the question of who's responsible for it, people blaming themselves and having to wrestle through all that, and then going on the trip into the woods that they were planning with their friend, almost like a memorial thing to their friend. So they're bonded by their relationship to this their fallen brother, right? That they feel like they need to go into the woods, ascend to the mountains, that he was interested in doing a group trip to. And of course, as most films where you go into the wilderness where you don't know with a group of friends, things go awry a little bit and you end up taking the shortcut, which never really pans out well, for at least for no one in horror films. You always stick to the path. Stick to the path, stick to it in daylight when if ever possible. Never go into the creepy cabin in the woods that you don't know who owns. You know, they do make a few of these concerted efforts, and probably poor decisions where, but you see their reasoning, right? It's when it's in the middle of the woods, they're already lost, they're in the dark, it's raining. Yeah, maybe take shelter in the abandoned cabin, you know. So they do, story-wise, at least they do have some reasoning for some of the things that they do. And the guy already hurt his leg, so he couldn't do the regular pass. So they did take care of story-wise reasonings for their poor decisions. It wasn't just the, oh, this looks like fun, you know, like some of the lower budget horror films of yesteryear sometimes have no logic. This, at least there's logical reasoning for all the choices that they make. So I appreciate that, as you know, as an aspiring writer myself. I always like it when I know I'm in good hands. I can see the logic behind their choices. But the thing I find the most interesting in this film is really, it's the main guy, I forget his name, but it's the main character's, it's his struggle with his guilt, you know, kind of like if you're talking about, I mean, and you could see this as an elevated horror and it could live in that world. It's kind of like how people say the Babadook is really an exploration of a mother's grief and loss of her husband, and living into that, and that whole and external manifestation of what that wrestle is. This, you could say, is the main guy's wrestling with his internal wrestle with the guilt of, is he the reason for the loss of his friend at the beginning of the film? And this really cool monster that I guess is really based in Norse mythology, really plays into, like, they know your thoughts, and specifically it seems like it's almost like a Freddy Krueger, like a dream demon thing, because it seems to attack people's minds when they're most vulnerable in their sleep, as we saw in several scenes where people were doing weird things in their sleep. And
so this, the Jotun or Jotun is what this one is. It does prey on grief. That's like one of its main things, is it preys on people's grief.
okay, so see, so that was even more masterful choices for the filmmakers. And that makes sense, because this guy is grieving, he feels guilt, and that's, I mean, he's probably putting off whatever that evil Norse god in the woods, pheromones, that they love, that stuff, man. He was putting that stuff out, and he was buying it, because he's like, yes, you're my kind of guy. I'm going to mess with you. I'm going to take you right back to the convenience store where you saw your buddy die. And I really loved the direction of how the filmmakers chose to show, like, these half constructed, you know, like the walls in the convenience store just materializing out of the woods when he's trying to run away from the monster, because you can't run away from your own grief and trauma, right? You have to face it head on. But, you know, Brent and I were talking the other day about, I think there's a way to read some subtext into this too, because once he gets to what they think is some kind of safety for a while at this village of basically the cult of this that worships this god, is you realize that they're all marked by this creature. They've all been attacked by the creature, but the creature decided not to kill them. And I think that's because all those people were people that he could really manipulate because of that grief and that trauma thing. So I think he's choosing his people to be his slaves and his followers, that kind of thing. And it could be a really interesting allegory for toxic religion and how cult leaders manipulate their flock and all those people, and they couldn't die, right? They're literally bearing his mark, which if you really want to get into biblical stuff like mark of the beast, it is a beast. And they're basically living in this purgatory hell because they can't die a natural death once they have been marked by this beast. I think there's a lot you could kind of infer there, but I really enjoyed this film. I don't typically like a lot of like quote unquote creature features unless they're kind of goofy in the B movie kind of sense and are played for laughs more than serious. This is a very serious movie and a creature movie. I think they show just the right amount of the creature where you don't really see the whole entirety of it until the very end. And I think that's how all the best serious creature features are. And yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised with it. I will return to it at some point, although this was my first watch. So I will pass to the next guy.
All right, so Brent, tell us why this was one of the films that you picked for us to talk about tonight.
I just think all the pieces are there. It's a mythic journey. So you have you have kind of the inciting incident, then you have this diverging road, and you have in this particular case, the threshold guardians, which it's their group. So they have that debate about, no, we should just keep going. And they're always talking about getting back on the right path. And they know they kind of messed up trying to take the shortcut. I think it's really fascinating that the creature chooses to kill off all of his friends, I think, to compound his grief. But what's amazing too is I love things that come really strong with theme and undertone. And so I think the themes of this film are very strong. As a filmmaker myself, I think they did a lot with not much. So there was a ton of B-movie tropes in here. Like you had just a lot of off-camera sound design that was so freaky and so amazing. I just loved how the creature sounded, and it was always in the periphery. You would hear it out in the woods, and I just think the design of the creature is amazing. And then the other thing I loved is I was born in 73, so when you think of Jaws, how they, Spielberg ended up having trouble with the submersible, we all know the story. So what he really wanted was this over-the-top shark that come out and eating everybody through the whole movie. He wanted that submersible shark just to be all the way through the movie. When it was breaking, they had to improvise. And what he ended up doing was setting the template for a good creature horror, where it really comes out and expresses itself in the third act, and you have the final big battle, And so I think for me, thinking back in the last 15 years, I can't really think of a creature that I loved more than this one in 15 years. When you fully see it in that one shot where it stands up and exalts itself and like peacocks in front of him, like you're gonna worship me. Like, look how awesome I am. Like, that was just one of the most incredible visuals I've seen in a long time. It was like things like 35 feet tall, So yeah, man, I loved the creature aspect. And I also just loved how really a contained how contained of a story it was. I mean, you basically have 4 guys in the woods and slowly going crazy. But again, just the B movie stuff, like what's upstairs, or what state do these guys awaken in? They've been like tormented in their dreams, and they wake up in these like crazy different states and screaming stuff or like talking in gibberish or whatever. There's just a lot of really cool B movie things that allowed it to keep its feet on the ground. But I thought the acting was good. I thought the script was amazing. Again, all the off-camera stuff, and then literally you can hear them on a budget going, how many VFX shots can we have? And then when we get close on the monster, what is that going to be? And so you have a trick that I love to do, and I want to do it even more. But you have on the close-ups, you have practical, So it's a puppet or a guy in a suit or whatever. And then when you pull back, you know, you've got, for the big scale, you've got CGI. So I think they juiced their budget. I tried to research and get back to it because I was told at some point by maybe someone who knew that it was a $5 million film. And I could not verify that online, but dude, if they did that movie for $5 million, that's like, that is a feat of ingenuity. And yeah, to have the deconstructed convenience store sets in the woods, there was just a lot of thought behind it and a lot of restraint, I feel like. And I feel like they did a lot with not much. And I loved how it evolved and kept getting bigger and growing in scale until finally you end up like at the village for the final battle. So as he's losing his friends in this, he's seeing kind of the final totality of this thing's realm and what it's really after and what it wants to do. I also thought too, what was really brilliant is I think somebody in South Korea could turn the sound off and watch this and be like, totally know what's going on. You know, like it's really amazing, just the visual storytelling I think that we're losing. It just works almost as a silent film. Like there's hardly any dialogue that you need in this movie. You know, you see that the guys are cross with each other and getting sideways, but like think about the guy like twisting his knee. You know, it's like it's also visual. You can follow the story visually with the sound off, and I think that in and of itself is a pretty awesome hat trick. And they really told a cinematic story that I was very appreciative of.
Yeah, well, I guess time for Black Cloud to show up.
That's okay.
To the party. Didn't like it. Didn't like it. And it's not because of against anything that you just said. Cinematography wise, it's great. The acting's good. It just feels like it's been done before and been done so many times now that it's almost boring. At least it felt that way for me. The impetus of them going on the trip felt forced to me. I feel like, so you have the situation, there's the guys in there, they're going to rob the place. They've got the guy there, the other one's hiding. In what situation, when there's guys with weapons, are you going to jump out and try to save the day? So I feel like if they wanted to make that seem more like maybe it was his fault, if they'd have made him run away, but him just hiding there in panic and fear just felt like a normal response in that situation. So this guy right here, Glasses, can catch these hands for being so blunt about it's your fault that he died. It wasn't his fault. I mean, I'm sorry, Jay is my best friend in the whole wide world. If
I was just about to pause you and ask you, would you not rescue me if I was in that situation?
No, but I would give you the best eulogy that has ever been given. I would lie through my teeth about how amazing you were in your last seconds, but my ass would be right out the door because they have weapons. What am I going to do with my flesh mitts when they have violent weapons? I'm not come out swinging. I'm already 10 feet away. By the time I get up to him, it was thwack, and now it's a double funeral. And now there's twice as many. There's at least 4 people now that are sad. Instead of just 2.
Chill.
So that felt like it wasn't developed enough to be meaningful to me. Like I feel like in that situation, I feel like every one of those friends would have done the same thing. Nobody was running out to save him when they're scared anyway. I guess another thing that I immediately thought of, and this is just, it just cracked me up, when he gets finally to the ridge and he's found the way out and the other 2 friends are still kind of in the woods. Boy, white people just be white people, and no matter where they are in the world, right? Because you've got the one friend that's kind of gimped from hurting his knee. You've got the other friend who's kind of helping him along, and then the one friend has, hey guys, here it is, here's our way out, we've done it, and the other 2 are nowhere to be seen. Why? Because they heard a noise. Screw that. I don't care if the noise was an ice cream truck giving out $100 bills. We've been in the woods, we've seen our friend disemboweled and hung from the trees, we've seen signs of possible witchcraft. we stayed in a cabin and all had nightmares. I'm out. I don't care what that sound was. That sound can chase me as I run as fast as humanly possible over that ridge and out. So I just remember seeing that scene and thinking, boy, it doesn't matter where you are. White people just white people in movies. I guess that's our horror movie trope of what we do. Like I said, it feels like it's all been done before. I will say it reminded me a lot of the Blair Witch, but things in the Blair Witch that I hated, they did better here. We get to see the monster. The monster was absolutely terrifying. Whatever nightmare fuel created that in mythology, that person probably had some really bad stuff happen to them at some point that they dreamed up, half man, half elk, half tree, whatever that was. Absolutely terrifying. But like I said, it just feels like it's all been done. I don't know how else to explain it. Nothing in the movie drew me in until the last 20 minutes. Did I miss something? Why did he start going ham and killing everybody? Because weren't they all like part of the tribe? And then all of a sudden this Norse Wendigo or whatever you called it just starts deciding to murder everybody. I don't know. I guess I wasn't paying a close enough attention as to why he just decided to start killing everybody.
Wendigo's gonna Wendigo. I don't know.
I did like the fact that when he gets the gun and shoots the guy and then shoots the thing, like usually in those situations, the people don't have the wherewithal to do anything. They kind of freeze. How many times have you seen in horror movies where the killer's 20 feet away from them, they've got a gun, they're pointing it at them, and somehow they don't think to pull the trigger in the 20 feet as the guy comes near them and then stabs them or rips the gun away and kills them. So at least he saw the guy or saw the beast and was like, oh, okay. It did nothing. But I mean, at least he had the wherewithal to actually shoot it and didn't miss. I did enjoy the ending. I did enjoy the scene with Glasses getting murked. I guess he got stabbed against something while the creature was holding his face, but thinking it was his wife, seeing the illusion that it was his wife, and then getting suffocated to death and then stabbed to choke on his own blood, because screw that guy throughout the entire movie. I couldn't stand him. I was so happy when he died. It was obviously the most refreshing part of the whole film. But yeah, was not a fan. Would I watch this movie again? Absolutely not, unless I had to. So
Jesus Christ, the smiling face assassin has struck again, everybody. All right, well, we already smashed into one wall with you. Let's smash into the other one. John?
So David Bruckner has got an interesting career. This past year, he did the Hellraiser remake, which I was actually a fan of. I really liked it. He had been working on...
Enjoyed the Hellraiser remake. That was really good.
Yeah, it really was. And he had been in development for a Friday the 13th film for a while. It was a shot on video 80s style Friday film, right? And it kind of fell through. I read the script and it was actually great. So I'm a fan of him. I do like his films. That being said, I didn't know anything about this movie. I saw it on Netflix, like previews of it, never watched it. I can honestly say this is one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen. The script is, pardon my French, fucking stupid. What the fuck
are y'all talking about? Did we watch the same movie?
That's what I'm thinking. So, right? Okay. The script
We've turned into talking about the ritual into turning it into the bitual.
That's the sequel.
This whole
see yourself out after that one, please.
Well, the whole script is, everything about it is illogical. First off, first off, let me just say, don't go hiking in Sweden. Don't go buy Swedish fish in Sweden. Don't go hanging out in Sweden. Don't go to Sweden, right? Like, it's like every movie about Sweden with horror tells you don't go there, right? I get the whole idea of trauma and regret sticking with you, even though they beat it over your head so many times in this movie. Like, I get it. Like, every time he sees something, he sees the convenience store. I get it, right? This is the thing about elevated horror that gets on my nerves, is it pushes it right in your face as if we're like 10-year-olds and we don't understand subtext. We get it. That doesn't make it a good movie just because you throw something out all the time. Romero, Carpenter, all these guys were way better at doing that without throwing this in everyone's face. because they were better filmmakers, in my opinion. That being said, everyone in this movie is annoying. All of the characters. The lead actor, Ray Spall, great actor. I love him in Hot Fuzz. I love him in most things. Yeah, he just kind of turns into a crazy man at the end. You know, he's killing the Swedish cult members. He's walking out the creature, what is the Jotun, Vagan, Magen, whatever.
Jotun. Jotun is the way it's pronounced.
Jotun. So that's walking. He's got a gun. Okay, he sees it. The creature does not see him, and he shoots at it. At what point in this entire movie makes you think, okay, let me take this 50-year-old rifle and shoot it at this creature that's a god? That's a good idea, right? Versus just
first of all, demigod.
Okay,
and
demigod.
if with your back against the wall, you're going to do whatever you think you can to survive, right?
Well, you're going to run. If you see that
too,
you're going to run. So, you know, also they're hiking in the woods and they don't have cell phones. They don't tell anyone where they are. Like, what is this, the 90s? Like, everything about that. So this movie is kind of like if you took Blair Witch and then you put in Without a Paddle and then you put in Deliverance. But I'll tell you what this movie should have been. The concept is there. This should have been the English remake of Deliverance.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Wendigo thing should have raped one of them at the end. Tell him to scream like a Wendigo.
He is essentially saying that, though.
Well, no, like this should have been, you know, the whole idea of the friend being there when his friend died in the convenience store, and then they're going on a trip. That's a perfect story to do something like a modern Deliverance, right? Where you're putting elements and you're fighting off against whether it's hillbillies or someone crazy. Like, that's a great idea, in my opinion. This is just like, when you start throwing all this stuff out and the way it's illogical, I was like, okay, like I'm out at that point. I mean, the creature design was good. I'll give you that. It was a cool design. You know, the acting was fine. I can't say it was bad acting. I don't know. I just feel like everybody in this movie made a lot of really stupid decisions. And I will say this, a movie that is not the same, but deals with something maybe in that vein is called Troll Hunter from 2010. That's a great movie.
That is a good movie.
That is
so was this movie, but that's also a good movie.
Oh, this is a terrible movie. This movie is like, when I say terrible, I would watch Men over this movie. Like, I will never watch.
That's not saying shit. That's watching two great films back to back.
Right.
And Men is not a good movie either. Men is like bad, but it's kind of like which turd smells, better, I guess you could say. So
is that a saying? I've never heard that.
I think at least Men was original. This
exactly
didn't feel original.
Exactly. And there's nothing, like you guys were talking about all these ideas and pulling out. There's nothing to be pulled from this movie. It's just bad filmmaking. It's a bad script. It's bad filmmaking. We can call it what it is. So yeah, that's my thoughts overall. I'm curious to see what you guys thought for ratings.
Wow. So I expected you and possibly Kellen to not like it, but to the degree that you've torn it down, I'm appalled, and I'm a little shocked, and frankly, I'm a little offended. I think this is a great movie. I think that, so first of all, it's not a Wendigo, it's a Jotun, which is from Norse mythology. It's a bastard child of Loki. Who would have thought Tom Hiddleston could have produced something so ugly as the creature in this film?
So he banged like a giant elk at some point, apparently.
Who knows? He was a frost giant. Who knows what he did? But the biggest takeaway I had was the creature itself. I love it. So I thought it was a Wendigo the first time until I did some research and read, Wendigo is what's in Hannibal the series. I don't know if you guys seen that, but he keeps seeing like a black elk or a black human figure with elk ears. It reminded me of this a lot. I love the creature design. What I loved about it the most is they're in this forest in the woods. You can't see anything but branches. And that the best part of the film, I think, were almost like jump scares, because you see them walking and you're just looking at the woods, and all of a sudden something shifts and moves, and that creature's following them because he blends in so well. I love that idea. He was truly terrifying. And cults like that, like that believe ancient things like that, and like Wicker Man, pagan stuff, all that stuff creeps me out anyways. Like, it's a very terrifying idea because that stuff exists in real life, you know?
The trees.
I hate you so much right now. For you, it is fresh on Rotten Tomatoes on both the critic and audience side. So, but another thing, and this is something that only, you know, I can pull away from this film, is it deals a lot with trauma. And I understand completely what you guys are saying. Am I pissed at Kellen because he wouldn't try to save me if I was being held up at a liquor store? Absolutely. But I understand. But is it better to hide in the corner knowing your friend knows you're there? Is it better just just bolt out the door and he watch you run away? Which one's worse in that situation? Like, they're both terrible. And we don't know their relationship. And even though this is not reciprocated, if I saw Kellen get murdered in front of me, I would be traumatized for a very long time, even though he doesn't share the same. But
I would be traumatized. I'm just not going out with you.
TJ, don't let him write my eulogy. You're hearing, if you're listening to this, do not let Kellen write my eulogy.
I'll do an edit pass on it.
But it was just that trauma aspect that I really enjoyed about the film too, because while it was terrifying because we have this crazy cult, we have this Norse demigod, we also have that emotion. And for a demigod that feeds off negative energy and guilt, I would be fucked if this guy came after me. Like, I'm 100% in this cult. I'm front row center. Like, I have all that in me, which is why I connected with this film a little bit, because yeah, your friend died. You guys think he made a huge deal out of this and it was nothing, but like, we don't know that relationship. We don't know what was already inside him. So I clinched to that part too, and how this is a film about trauma and trying to overcome it, which I think essentially the main guy does at the end. He lets go, he screams, like he's releasing all that energy. And I don't know if, like, I have two theories on the end. I don't know if it's because he let all that go. The creature's just like, okay, I'm out. You're done. I don't see this trauma anymore. See you later. Or if the creature itself is confined to the woods. Like, is he confined to a certain area and he can't go past the tree line?
I think
See,
he's
that's
confined to
that's
plot
what
holes.
I originally thought. The plot holes.
It was like him relieving his trauma.
I'm gonna throw both of y'all in a plot hole. No. But all those aspects, this is my second time watching. Like I said, I watched it very close to when it originally came out, and I liked it then, and I feel like I liked it better this time. But hey, that's why we're here, and I actually love it when we don't all agree. I'm still disappointed in you guys, but so we'll go around one more time. We'll give our favorite kill of the movie, and we'll give our
take my
ranking.
opinion with a grain of salt, because right now I look like I'm the poster child for a Chris Hansen episode of To Catch a Predator. So
Get a wine cooler. You're not wrong. So let's go around, give our favorite kill, and give our rating out of 5 stars. TJ.
Well, probably a favorite kill is when you see that first guy just splayed in the trees and his guts falling out, and you don't really expect to see that. Even though you don't really see the kill, you see the aftermath of it. So, I mean, I give it a solid 3.5. I'll probably watch it again. In some ways, I actually like this more than Men, because I feel like it tackles more subtextually. You can read more into it. Or
Probably
choose
easier
not
to watch on repeat also.
Yeah, there's less butthole bursts, which is always helpful for the rewatches. What about you, Brent?
Yeah, I'd give it a 4. And my favorite kill is it's kind of offbeat, but it's all of the tribal elders that they had to move upstairs because they had decomposed so bad. So when he like burns all those, I thought that was really cool. Those practical puppets and stuff. I thought it was pretty amazing. So when he burns all those in the upstairs, I thought that was a pretty amazing sequence. And then a couple things I would maybe bring back to the top is, like, everybody experiences life differently. So to me, in the open, I didn't take it that the filmmakers were saying that it was his fault. But like for me, when I have experienced trauma or like something bad has happened, I think I ruminate back I think a lot of people do. I ruminate back and go, do everything I could have done? We just had to put an animal down on the farm, and I've ruminated on it a lot. Like, did we do everything we could? And so I think a lot of people do process life and experience it that way. So for me, I guess I had a different take at the open. Was I didn't think the filmmakers were trying to say it was his fault at all. Humans go into fight, flight, or freeze, and that's just what happened to him in that moment. But I think a lot of people would question if that was their fault. I know I would in that situation. And then the other thing I would say is I think they did handle the cell phone issue. I think they lost bars, and they did tell people they were checking in, but because they took the shortcut and they ended up stranded, they knew that people were going to call in and report them missing. So I think they tried to handle that, at least in the dialogue, in the exposition. And then the third thing was he didn't go on a bloodbath killing at the end. I think he only killed that one girl because she looked up at him and she wasn't supposed to. He didn't go on a slaughterfest and kill all the villagers. I think that was just one. I think it was just one person, and she committed a sin by looking up at his beauty or whatever. So it got a little crazy, but when he's holding, I think in that shot behind Jay, that's after he laid it down. That's after he got shot, but he's picking that girl up and jacking her up because she looked up and she wasn't supposed to. So I guess those are the three things I would maybe defend the film for a little bit. But
I
overall,
like what you said about the store.
Yeah, overall, those are nitpicky, things that, I mean, they probably don't sway you guys' opinion too much, but just reacting to your thoughts on it for sure.
Your thoughts on the opening where he gets shot. I didn't think about it that way, but that does make sense. He could have internalized it on his own. The only thing that made me lead the other way was just because his friend kept looking at him like, bro, like, what are you going to do? So, but I like that take on it too, for sure. All right, Kellen.
Yeah, everything Brent just said completely changed my mind. 4-star review. Great movie. Would watch. Would recommend.
Wow.
No, I get everything. Everything he says makes perfect sense.
All right, John.
I still
John, you're
enjoy
next.
the movie.
John.
A 2. I give it a 2. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but like I said, I'm not gonna watch it again. As far as favorite kills, though, I already talked about it in mine. When Glasses gets straight murked, and we get to watch it happen. Because like I said, I hated that character, so it was satisfying that he finally died. I think he should have died sooner because, like I said, he's bummed up with the knee and was a total dick for most of the movie. So
he's definitely the Franklin of the bunch,
So just to clarify, both, I believe, Kellen and John, you both like Terrifier 2 more than this film.
I did too.
Oh, well, I love Terrifier 2, so
I love that movie. I love The Ritual, but I would watch Terrifier 2 next. First. All right, John, okay. Bring that average a little bit lower.
So there's a lot of things in this movie that could be really good. I do think the story there, I didn't mind the opening. Like I said, I think they could have used that for a different film. I really think that could have been a more realistic, like Deliverance type film. I just think the script is so dumb. There's so many dumb moments in this film. The script is dumb. I appreciate they're trying to use trauma, but it's beaten over the head too much. And it's very uneven the way they use it. Best kill, I don't know about kill. They were all pretty decent kills, but the thing that made me laugh the most was when he punches the old lady at the end. That was just so sudden, he like hits her. I did laugh at that. That was pretty cool. Overall rating, oh God. Like, personally, it's like a 1, but I'll give it a 2 out of 5. I will never watch it again, but I'd say 2 out of 5, honestly, for sure.
You're just so kind. So,
hey, stick to your ones if that's what you feel.
It's not. That's just me being ridiculous. I'll give it a 2. 2 is fair.
Okay.
So we got 2. We got 3.5. We got a 4. We got another 4. I gave it 4. Like I said, I love this movie a lot.
I think I need to use the calculator on that one. So we got
it's a
3. I think it was a 3.1.
Don't you dare try to bring it up to a 4.
My favorite kill was kind of the beginning in the store, just because that just kind of set off everything, and you knew, going in, this was going to be kind of hardcore. I like that. It was brutal. And whenever there's something brutal like that straight out the gate, it always keeps in the back of my mind. So that was my favorite kill. We gave this one an average of 3 Not too shabby considering the anchors we had. Okay, so that's a wrap on this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram. If you have Amazon Music, there's a playlist featuring music from all our films. We'll get some Jesus Revolution soundtrack on there too to match with this episode. And we'll see you next week. I'm not quite sure what episode we're doing next week, so it'll just be a surprise for all of us. So Brent, thank you again for taking some time with us. If you just want to take a second to let everybody know where they can find your work, your films, if you have anything coming up.
Oh yeah, just find me on Instagram. It's just Brent McCorkle. I'm doing a couple more Lionsgate movies in the Fate space next, so we're concepting those, and yeah, Lionsgate's been a really cool partner, and I'm just gonna keep doing stuff with them on the next couple movies. So
is it the next Saw film?
No, but my executive actually broke the Saw series. He's the one who bought it. So yeah, one of my executives bought Saw and bought John Wick. I think John Wick was shot. The first John Wick was shot as an independent film, and they brought it into the fold. And so yeah, he's a franchise whisperer, very smart. So yeah, Jason,
good friend to have.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Well, thanks again. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Signing off, I'm Jay with Brent, John, Kellen, and TJ. And until next time,
keep it spooky.